on Instagram and we're live on YouTube. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashila Springer. I am a Trinidad born but Caribbean based person with ties to Venezuela, St. Vincent, Grenada, Barbados, and beyond. And March 13th, 1979 marked a very significant day in the history of uh, the people of Grenada. It was the start of the Grenada Revo. It was the day that Comrade Maurice Rupert Bishop, the late Prime Minister of Grenada, took over power of that island just 5 years after independence in a bloodless coup. And what happened after that was 5 years of experimentation, curiosity, um, trying to build a different version of civilization. And we all know that it ended in a very tragic way. However, so often we focus on the tragedy and not on the things that went on in the time before the tragedy. And I was a small child at that point, and so I have vague memories of seeing Maurice Bishop in Trinidad. My sister was supposed to visit, um, actually in 1983. Um, and so, you know, there's a closeness to the revolution that I still feel, and I still feel that there are so many questions that I can't get a full answer to. I don't expect these two women here to give me all the answers that I want to all the questions that I have, but I'm so pleased to have my two auntie Pearls. So to my immediate right is Will Hodge. She is an author, literary critic, educator. She is down as the first Black woman in the Caribbean to publish a novel. Yes? Oh, well, no. They have something that they say that you published.
Yes,
but I'm trying to figure out
what it is.
Yes,
Well,
but I mean,
yes, they were, I think they were, what they said was against the background of women writers not having been taken terribly seriously by publishers.
mhm,
So that one of the things I've seen written down that I was the first black woman to be taken seriously as
right, right.
but women have been writing.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And this Auntie Merle also served as a curriculum advisor under Maurice Bishop's government. And then to my extreme right, we have Merle Collins, Grenada-born poet, author, um, also a brilliant professor emerita from the University of Michigan. Um, Maryland,
Maryland.
sorry. Um, and she served in as part of the government of Maurice Bishop as a researcher in Latin American issues. And so these two women are joining me this evening for us to have a little conversation about some of the lessons that we can learn from the Grenada Revo. I want to start by asking um, what drew you to the New Jewel movement? What drew you to the New Jewel movement?
Okay, me, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, I think it was very simple. It was first time I knew that but she lived in fact we lived in our family house for the year because she worked there for a while. She was working with the Guidance Conference in Churchill. And I met her and Norris, I guess, through Alan Alexander, a renowned lawyer who was also but he was going to be the person to oversee the, the beginning of a new constitution that um, would include a new system of popular participation in the well, yes, yes. I mean, it was developed in the revolution. So he was a person designated to oversee the process. It was going on, right? We put councils in the different parishes and then zones and so, but all of that, plus I suppose other things, all that was going to be put into the new constitution. Okay, so I mean, so I knew all about it, well, not all, but I knew Jackie was a member of the NGM, and she would talk about their activities. But then also, I went to Grenada because they I mean, I call it providence because just before that, I resigned from my job here, and I wasn't sure how what I was going to do next, but I just wanted out because we were rapidly expanding. Trinidad and Tobago was expanding the education system at that time, and so schools were being built and so on. It was a new style of school and huge schools. I really didn't entirely enjoy the teaching I was doing, but the school is fine now. I've been there recently. They invited me to come and we are reading interactive students and so and it's fine. The people who are running these schools now, we've settled into that,
Yeah.
that kind
But
of
at that
school.
time, it was uncomfortable for
It
you.
was uncomfortable because it was new and there were too many children because it was only comprehensive school, but they have taken measures to solve all of that. And perhaps some of the teachers are quite used to that. Maybe they went to comprehensive school as well. This was the late 70s, so that it was just that we weren't accustomed to that
Yeah.
size of school. So it was a little bit, I found crazy. You know. But of course, we welcome the expansion of education.
Yeah. And other Auntie Merle,
Yeah.
how did you become involved in UGM?
Well, just from the 1970s, that period, I had just come back from, I think Maurice returned from England in about 1970. And I came back from Jamaica in 1972. And during that period was the kind of formation of organizations struggling against, organizing against the Gary regime and organizing with people who were demonstrating for better social conditions generally. So during that whole period of the 72, 73, when the NJM was just being formed, I was really interested in what these, well, generally, you have to say young people who had come back from various parts of the world, like studying this grad study, like usually coming back from Howard, Maurice coming back from the UK and all that. And they're saying, hey, if we're seeing things that are to be opposed, we should oppose them. So, that kind of organization happening in the 1970s. And we, I just coming back from Jamaica. Um, and also coming from a tradition at Mona where there were these struggles.
Yeah.
These
Because
that
Walter Rodney would have
interested.
been
Walter
one of
Rodney
your
was
teachers.
no,
or,
Walter
or
Rodney wasn't one of my teachers. He was expelled just the year before I got there.
okay,
So I got onto a campus that was always demonstrating.
right.
So there was a lot of that kind of becoming,
Mhm.
as a young person on campus. So I was very ready for the kind of organization that NJM and um, was that the newly formed NJM was doing at the time. So I became part of the demonstrations happening in St. George's in that period of, between up the 1970s, uh, before before the overthrow. So during that whole period, that's what attracted me.
around 75, there was actually like a lot of violent clashes that happened with Gary's regime and the NJM
Yes.
specifically. I mean, I actually saw for the first time a picture of Maurice in hospital
The
having been
beating.
beaten.
Uh-huh.
What what prompts you to keep going even beyond the beatings, even beyond that what would have been clear resistance? I mean, I remember my dad telling me about the Mongoose gang, and how and because Grenada is such a small place, you have people who were in school together
Right.
now on very, very different sides of a
Absolutely.
political divide.
Yeah.
So, what was Grenada like in that time even before the rebel?
I think what happened during all of those years of demonstration and struggle is that people had, you know, um, reached a point where they wanted a change. And again, you're seeing new generations because the 1951 generation, the people then thought that Gary promised something for Grenada. And then by the time we get to the 1970s, the children of those people were part of the demonstration. You see what I mean? So you have a new generation. I mean, I'm not saying all the children of those, but you have a new generation wanting different solutions. So I think that's some of what happened because I remember, as I say, I had just come back from Mona. I started teaching and teachers, students, everybody, people going out onto the streets to demonstrate. And it was that feeling that we have to oppose this. And of course, remember that this is an era too when you're having Black Power struggles and demonstrations all over the world. So when Gary is coming out and saying things like, "Oh, it's Black Power you want? Well, I am the Black Power. I'm Black and I have power." You know what I mean? So so those kinds of things and young people clearly opposing this and coming out and feeling having the confidence to say so. And I'm saying having the confidence to say so, but it didn't just happen like that. The organization, the fact that you had these young academics coming back and lawyers and so being willing to lead the struggle and also to do pro bono work, so that people know if they were arrested, Morris if he got any defense, other
Right.
people would be defending them, radicals, etc. So that was the general atmosphere of the period.
So, you weren't in Grenada in 1979.
No.
Were you there as well, or you went in Grenada in
No, I was in
1979?
Grenada. I was teaching in the
Right.
accounting and stuff.
Okay. But do you remember the day when you got the news? Do you
Yes.
remember what happened on that day, March 13th, 1979?
Yeah, well, I wasn't in Grenada. I was
Yeah.
driving home. Not driving home, driving to school. And we had cane field then, so I'm driving up to the cane field to go to a river. And you see, when they took the barracks, they well, I don't know exactly how it worked. It's technical. They were able to make a broadcast
Yes.
from what they took the radio station and they called it Radio Free Grenada. And Morris was the they were sending out messages from Morris telling people to
To stay
come
calm
out and
and,
but
and
also
come
come
out.
out and help.
Yeah.
And that they were playing Valentino, stay
Yeah.
up Zimbabwe and all kind of thing. I got so excited. It was really I said, but I
He was ready to pack your suitcase on time.
and then but you're passing the road, the highway, you're passing through. You're driving along and the airport is off that road somewhere.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, look, if I was really crazy, I'd go to the airport now and I'm going here. that was something else, especially using those calypsos. I can't remember what the others were. I'm sure there's somebody who remembers what the calypsos is, but they created just the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So I mean, so when I heard that, I said, well, all right, I know why I resigned now, right? Yes.
And what about you?
I was in the US. I was in the US at that time. Because I had left Grenada in after those demonstrations. I left Grenada in 78 at the end of 77. And I was in a kitchen at that time because I'd started studying, doing um, what took me back home in the end, the Latin American studies, Latin American in Washington.
Right.
And of course, the things you do day to day to survive. When I say I was in the kitchen, I was babysitting. And I am standing there, and somebody called me and said, "You don't know what's happening home." So, and of course, what happening home was the revolution, was that. And so, of course, I was just glued to, and you see me looking up here because I'm remembering the little black and white television on a shelf there.
Okay. Wow.
So, very, so I'm looking at that all the time to see what images, and of course, changing and thinking, like, I'm not sure we will get it there. So that was the excitement. It was just straight excitement because when people are saying, hey, this is a takeover, and it is the NJM, and I'm remembering all the demonstrations, so it was just total excitement.
Um, so, a question that I've seen asked on a few occasions is, well, why didn't they, why didn't the NGM go through the regular democratic process of engaging in the election system, etc.? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, well, it's straightforward. Was there only one election with that Morrison they went for the NJ was because he regulate every time. But I mean, I think it was only one, but and I'm sure he was he was very about something like Trump, you know. No holds bad, no rules, So there was no voters election, have a campaign and everything, and then just the same thing was happening again. So they have to be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony of the thing is, I always say the Americans came down on Grenada, right? They were attacking them all the time. America came into being after a seizure of power from the British. So, I mean, I don't know why that seems such a strange and um
Unreasonable
route to
and
take.
yeah.
That is how they came into existence. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the general feeling was that, hey, here we're not going to go in with elections. So that was the popular feeling, that um, elections are always rigged. And it's why Maurice and so why the NGM was able to have something like that and have people on their side, because as I listened from over there to the narratives of what was happening, you hear this thing. I mean, it's something strange that, or it might sound strange to others, that the radio would be asking people to put up a white flag, police stations and all of that. If you agree with what's going on, and if you agree with what's going on, go out on the streets and whatnot. And I'm thinking, hey, this is a revolution by radio. So it's a really strange way. But it's because there was that popular support for the revolution, popular support for that kind of change, that it was possible at all for it to happen.
So you got home, you got back to Grenada in 1980 or
At the end,
81.
at the beginning of 81, January 81, that's when I finished studying. That's when I finished my studies. And but before that, I had been saying, well, when I had finished, I said, well, I will see what I can do here, meaning over there. And then, of course, the revolution happened. I said, well, I had to be part of that. You understand?
Yeah.
So it was, so I went back to Grenada, yes, at the beginning of 81. And having done Latin American studies, I sort of moved into a job at Foreign Affairs,
Mhm.
um, researching Latin America and the Caribbean.
Mhm.
Um, and also, when you study, I had also done a certificate in translation,
Mhm.
Spanish into English. And there were times when officials would be having meetings with Spanish speaking figures. And I would be told, you translate it, you're interpreting this. I'm not an interpreter.
Different job entirely.
Exactly. But the response was, and I remember Maurice himself laughing and saying, you know, what is this thing about interpreting and translation? You come from a little country, you do in Spanish, of course you're an interpreter.
And of course, I don't have many of those two things on
Of
the
course,
ground.
of course.
So
So they could, yeah. So I found myself struggling and listening to people and saying, Lord, I want to say it right. So, you're forced into um, these situations because they're not all of those resources on the ground.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. I mean, you certainly would have had a strong connection with the Cuban contingent that was very much part of what was going on there.
right. But although at the time, right at the beginning, when did I get back? 81. Very much part of what was going on, yes. But when it came to sort of that interpretation and translation coming out of the ministry, not so much contact.
Mhm.
At, you know,
Yeah.
at least not at that period.
Yeah. And what about you? You went very soon after
Yes.
March 30.
A month on, well, no, I can't start. I have it it is that I have to do the term. I resigned something and then, yeah. No,
Make
I
it
guess
to the
I
end of the term.
that too, yes.
Right.
Yes,
So that would have
period.
meant like by May or so you would have been, or the end of the Easter term.
Yeah, right. No, but I'm saying that I don't know why I said that because when term things and all of that is a muddle in my head. But I had to last out
The end of the term.
You're right.
And then as soon as the term was finished, you packed your had your bundle and you went.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But, the same year, the
In 79.
79. Yes, and I think Nambi, he still remembers really well. And they did have fun, as he's almost as though he was born there.
Yeah.
And he got into school and like I said, he must have been 4 years. He had his fifth birthday. Yes, well, I can't really. But you know what's happening to me? I'm mixing up 83 with that because I'm thinking of October, but it would have been the term after January, yes.
Yes.
It will all mix up in my head. It's in 79. What happened was in March, was
Yes.
today, yes. Sorry, that is a mix up in my head.
No.
Yes.
It's all right. It's all right.
Too.
I tried to drag things out of you, and I'm very happy for your patience and your ability to drag things out. It's very good. So when you went into Grenada, what was the first thing that you did when you got to Grenada?
You mean job or?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, I went to Grenada. You see, we set up a new program. I was in the Ministry of Education. I'm doing various things, which of course I can't really. Well, actually, I started the whole business of thinking about curriculum and how we would organize it with the teachers and so. And then I can't remember exactly when. Of course, I have that in documents at home. But we set up a new, and it was a really, really creative, I have to say, invention. Because the problem, one, there was a big emphasis on education. I have to say that throughout the revolution, all kinds of, one of the things is that they very soon put up what was the CPE, Center for Popular Education, because there was a high rate of illiteracy, and that did not go so well with the idea of democracy. I mean, a lot of countries then, and I suppose still, are very complacent about the existence of literacy, and that's why they put an X on it. There should not have to be any X on it. Everybody can be. How are you going to say you have people participating a whole slice of them can read, So, and then, but I'll tell you about the system that was set up. We in Grenada, what was happening is that there was this one teachers college, and I think the course was 2 years or something like that, and well, a class of about 30 or 40, I don't know, I can't, what existed in terms of teacher education. But what would happen is that as soon as they graduated, one batch, about half of them or more would migrate. They would teach until they could get out.
Wow.
So that there's a kind of treadmill just going round and round. So what they decided to do, when I say they, a lot of us were involved in discussing that and shaping this thing. It was decided they would have a center in town in the teachers' college, and they would have a center up north for teachers in that part of the island. And they would use 1 day a week in each of those divisions. They would have a day of teaching, all the, and this is saying all the teachers who were not trained. I mean, the ones who were stayed and took part in something that was called the CSDP, the Community School Day Program. And on that day, while most of the teachers were down, either down up in Grenada or down in the Teachers College in St. George's, so that the school was lacking some of its teachers, people in the community would come in and do various things. People wanted to teach the children something, sewing or something, and would come in, and sometimes if there were repairs to be done in the school, carpenters in the area would volunteer to help fix the furniture. And so that the teachers in the program went to both sides. I think it happened on Tuesday and Friday. So they were teaching at the town of Friday, which was teach, and we got quite a distance. I think we must have had a whole year of it. I already all of that. I would have had to read up, the documents I have to remember. But it went well. There was resistance. Just in case, just to inform people who think that there was suppression of protest. A lot of the teachers complained and quarreled and protested and so. And I think one of the reasons is that traditionally, what you would do if you went to teachers' college was that if you're a trained teacher, you could take that and go to another country. So that there was that, and people complained about this school thing, and I'm not saying everybody, most of the teachers were very appreciative of it, but there was a current of protest, and not behind the hand at all. His teachers, after all, they
were very
vocal. I remember one particular teacher. The thing was called NISTEP, that is National In-Service Teacher Education Program. And there was one teacher, a senior teacher, and senior kids, I must get back her name right now. She used to say, misstep, oh what a misstep. And that kind of thing, And one accident that happened made the protesting ones even, gave them a little fodder to use. There was the government chartered a bus, both ways. So people who were not near to the center came down in this bus. And Grenada has roads and hills and precipices, and the bus went down in a precipice. And some people died. Like 3 or 4. They really can't remember. But so that gave a little more boost to the protesters.
Yeah.
But no, it was a lovely thing. And you see what really helped. And that for me is my best memory of the way that the community, that people came out and participated in that school program. They came out, they helped, but voluntarily. Nobody was asking for something. So, right, so we did that.
I really admire the work being done in the education sector. Generally, for that big.
Yes. Okay. I was specifically assigned to language arts, right? The language arts curriculum, and also the creation of a new set of reading books, right? Um, we call them the reading books the Malaysia readers,
Right.
Malaysia
Yes.
Grenada, and producing the books was in itself. I mean, a part of it was a curriculum development exercise, because they there was a kind of curriculum development that is appropriate for the Caribbean that had been developed and was starting to go into the schools before I left here. I don't know if the schools continue with that, but that is an approach that we learned with people like Lawrence Carrington and so on. That just like how you would teach another language, a foreign language, French or Spanish, you would teach in steps. You would teach them a structure every week, every starting with I am and he is and so, and you would go up the ladder, and at every stage you would one specific thing. Now the problem with the teaching of English traditionally is that we assume that what we talk is but we not be talking another language Trinidadian still. And all of that is what the objective was, to get all of those get the teachers to understand those things, that so that English was not taught in the past. You had all kind of exercises and books made for British children who already talk English. There wasn't any. It wasn't well. No, nobody was trained in the past in the whole Caribbean to do it as systematically as we do it with teaching Spanish. So I was assigned to doing those books, and also to teaching language as to improve the teachers' English and their understanding of the language situation. You know, I remember something in the paper as we move forward. Old age apart from anything else.
But also, important to talk about how education was such an important part of the
Yes,
of the
because it
revolution.
was everywhere. It wasn't just in the schools and the teachers, and so they had worker education at workplaces. They had the literacy program, and it is so nice. This yes, they got a lot of young people, children, grandparents and children, school. Almost some of them were school children to teach old people literacy.
Wow.
It was
And this was
something.
voluntary activity.
Well, yes.
That's really important. And I think the adults were really interested in doing that, couldn't read and write, felt comfortable enough to learn from children.
Yeah.
And that in itself said something about the ideas that were being spread by the leaders, because they were saying, if you can't read, it's not your fault, right? It's the system that failed you. So come, we're trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
And so people understood that, were really interested in going out and talking to young people.
Do we have anything that replicates that
Yeah.
in
Well,
the region at all now?
Well, of course, in Jamaica, that was going on while I was there. They had a massive literacy program, and of course in Cuba. In the past, these young people would go out in the countryside and live with people and teach them, way. I mean, that's a much bigger place than this.
Yeah.
This is Cuba. And they went and they lived in the communities where they taught. So those exercises have a number of products. They might not be stated in the objectives, but all kinds of things come out from that kind of meeting of people. And I guess this happening in the Grenada Revolution.
Yes, so I suppose in a sense what we are living there is of how important that kind of political leadership was to these kind of programs. And it really also, in my estimation, gave people a lot of confidence to challenge those who, in this particular case, I thought of themselves as more educated, etc.
Right.
So that I remember, and this is something, in fact, I thought it was my memory, but Pauline said it was her memory. So I don't know, it probably was all of us. But there was this thing that happened on one occasion, and it happened at Vincent Court, where somebody from the water board or somewhere was asked to talk to people about what is happening with water. So he went and he did his presentation, and he was eagerly, and when he was finished, somebody in the audience said something to the effect of, "Thank you, sir, but break it up for me, please." Oh, you remember that?
Yes,
You say all your big word and thing. I really don't understand all of that. Break it up for me, please. And it was possible for someone in the audience to do that kind of thing because people were being taught, people were being told, hey, none of this is your fault. You're not understanding what those who go away and study say. They speak to you in certain ways. Make them communicate with you because it's their responsibility to,
I mean, if I have one specific complaint about how governance is approached in the present day, it's that governmentese is a language that is deliberately designed to confuse people.
Yes.
So I mean, it's something that we saw especially during COVID, where you had a panel of experts who would come up every day and explain to you these things, and they would use like all of this very technical jargon, and we were expected to have a medical degree to be able to understand the things. So I like that idea that people felt comfortable to be able to keep their leaders accountable, to explain to them what's going on.
Right. So that's one of the wonderful memories I think we have. And in fact, you see, and I think all of us claiming the memory. So when I was telling the story on one occasion, and Pauline said, "Well, that's how I remember it," I thought, okay, so I'm not sure if it's mine or if it's good. Perhaps it's both of us.
But you see, one kind of empowerment that took place is that people were encouraged not to see political leaders or any other kind of person who is in charge of anything as gods.
Yes.
You can talk to them on that level, even though you can read, that does not lower your humanity.
Yes.
You are still a person.
Yes.
And then you see, I think that must have happened at the parish council.
That was at the parish council.
Yes, because we were developing a thing, we were developing a system of participatory democracy. And it started with parish councils. Now in Trinidad and Tobago, parish don't mean nothing. We realize that in Trinidad and Tobago, we made a parish is an area where the people see themselves as living in a particular place. I don't know, but over here, some people.
I don't know which parish.
I was doing the same. Many people have no idea what parish they're living in.
Yeah.
So it started with inviting people to come. Now, in the beginning, it was all happening in town, but I suppose it became Yeah.
It
Well, it started off at the dome, I think, but everybody went there at that time.
And
After a while,
afterwards,
it started to split off into their center in St. George's Parish, St. David, and so on. We were in this NWO group, National Women's Organization. And we used to hire a bus. Everybody else did it, hire a bus out of the group's money. Nobody was handing out money for bus fare. We used to raise money by various different things. And we hired this bus. And the bus took us to the dome. The dome was this big, I don't know what it was put there for to begin with, but one huge thing that would have to be
during that scary period,
yes, I know we inherited it. And it was made out of plastic. Something of a big structure, a round thing.
could have been for, I don't remember what
It must have been some international conference or
something,
something.
yes.
Yeah. So at the beginning, I don't know how many we did like that at this big place, but the thing was growing. There wasn't space. But half of the people were standing up and they didn't even have enough chair for people like the song and this thing. So they would come down and they would get up and speak about problems in their neighborhood. And so the next time they came somebody, a technician or something like the electricity was an issue. Somebody from the electricity commission would have to stand up and explain. Well, I mean, by then it would have been attended to, so they would come and report. And if there were problems getting it fixed, they would have to come and tell people. But then when it became unwieldy, at some point I remember people standing up and step outside and they went to the data center in every parish. And people would go there instead. And then that started to burst at the seams. So they were moving. I don't think we actually got to the zonal thing, but they were going to make zones, clusters of villages, where we would all go to the center. Those things were so amazing. Those people came out, people rolled out from their homes, man. I am actually and they're coming back. So all of those are there. And you see, that is what was going to go into this constitution that was written.
Right. Right.
And in a sense, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that in a sense it also recalled, I don't necessarily recall it because that was about transformation then too, but the days when people were interested, the generation before, when they were interested in the kinds of things that public spaces that Gary made possible. Because I think that dome came out of, I'm saying character, but probably Carifest or something that happened in Grenada. Yes, that he stayed that space. So it's interesting to see, how it's used later on in a kind of similar way. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. But where I was when the Americans invaded, I was at the Crest, Jackie, and I was sitting, I bring all these children down the street and we started hearing things in the sky. Now, you never heard an airplane over St. George's because the airport was up in the north. So you could hear, I remember on a manual time the Americans were sending planes. Anyway, so it went to zonal, yes, but I think it kind of cut off at that point. I think with October 8th.
So now you're talking about like a sort of idyllic, you know, situation where things seem to be working well, people are responding. There is some complaining and response, but I mean that's natural. What were the first signs for you that something was going wrong?
Well, I don't know if you want to decide this one, but I will start to actually that's what I said. Part of the trouble is that what was going wrong was unconscious. I want you to read about the assassination of Morris Bishop written by a man who was a judge, I think, anyway, I would say he had worked in Grenada before, I think, when he came back just to do research on revolution, and he's written a whole book showing you where the fourth faction within the revolution started on this idea of John leadership. What was the mandate
Right.
of leadership? And
Right.
so,
And that's because that was the oral faction,
yes, this
right?
is it.
And they wanted from what I've read, they wanted a more um how to say that? A more formal Marxist
Yeah.
Leninist
Formal and
revolution.
fundamentalist
Right.
ideology.
Right.
They wanted the thing to move quickly
Right.
to Marxist Leninism. I remember when I first went over there, Jackie, Jackie used to drive all over the day and go and meet people and sit down
Yeah.
and talk and things. And she took us, well, it was me, my child, Nambi, and Vlad's, the child, Vladimir. And we were sitting in a kind of savannah under a tree with some women. And then it is early. One of them said, that they're here, we're going to be under socialism. And Jackie say, no, you don't just go into socialism like that. You first have to build up some resources. Socialism is not, it's not a cheap.
Just watching for them coming.
What you mean, yes.
You can't reach there just so.
Exactly. She was saying you need resources for that because the business is stuff that everybody could be looked after. You know. And so what is in this book is the meetings that they were holding behind, oh Lord, all right, behind
Behind the
everybody, but
scenes.
I didn't know, and I
Right.
most of the women didn't know this was happening. They were having these meetings, and also Jackie was in the party and was in this we call it the central committee, and now they would have, I suppose, a power, not just like in any city, there was something that they were kind of saying. But so there was a point at which she told me something or the other. One little thing, and I say, but oh God, something happening. Something happening, and there was a time when the women of some of the leadership and the women in the communities who had jobs that involved overseeing the development and things. There was a time, I can't remember when that was, but when women, so, major supporters of the revolution, started to say to the leadership, look, we have to do something. People are overworked, right? And one person, I think it's Tessa, if I'm not mistaken, said, my children are telling me, Mommy, when we get big, we ain't going into no meeting. Because everybody was out.
Everything is a meeting.
Yes,
Everything is a meeting.
and them
Yeah.
home, and So I mean that was one thing, but I mean I didn't see that as negative. That those were supporters of the revolution. So that thing that happened at the end there was a piece of slyness. That because my view is that you're developing this beautiful thing about going to the people about everything. Well, there's no government in the world really. There's always some confidentiality.
Yeah.
But you're saying people are going to be consulted in those things about everything that hits, that everything that affects their daily lives. In the middle of that, when that is really going from strength to strength, you go and you take some fellows with you and you come to these drastic decisions when that was going on all the time. So where is the consultation? You know what I mean? So that was such a contradiction that is really but I know it's not the word, But they consulted with just those people, those boys who had been in oral. Jackie had told me even before the revolution that was going to cultivate. No, not before the revolution. It would have been in the revolution. But when she was home at the beginning, there was no talk of revolution. That so that it is, and she was able to indicate who they were because he was a teacher. He was explained before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is, I'm still wondering whether there's any way all that kind of thing can be prevented. And then, of course, the Americans were on our case all the time. There was a time when they had identical editorials attacking the revolution up and down the Caribbean. One identical editorial in all the major newspapers coming down the yes. You see, so that but that also that let me go back to the thing with the woman. Everybody who was working in the revolution was being overstretched. You see, so I mean, I suppose some level of I don't know, irritation, fatigue, I don't know, but that it didn't happen kind of by, well, it was happening by degrees, but behind our back. So we could not have noticed, unless you were in the center. Central committee.
Say something about how the things started to look
Well, yeah,
shaky.
I am listening again and thinking, I don't know that I have the answers because, as well as saying, a point came when people felt overstretched. Like you're doing so much, so all of this, so that at this point, as we're talking about it, I remember in times when I said, to people I trusted within this that structure, gosh, you're doing so much things, you know what I mean? What that book you're talking about, Godfrey, the assassination of Maurice Bishop, in that he recounts some of the things, yes, that people were saying afterwards. We had these early meetings within the central committee where all of this being overstretched and being, overworked and women complaining within the NWO that, there's so much work, their children will never want to be in anything revolutionary because of all of that. So all of that complaint was happening around that time. So looking back at it now, you say, all right, there was a sense of people being really stressed out by 3 years in or 4 years in, whatever that
Right.
was.
So like by
But
82,
but
people were
yes,
starting to
yeah,
feel the pressure.
exactly,
Yeah.
feeling the pressure. And also, it's partly because the party had developed this really secret structure, which I guess is the Marxism Leninism. Develop this really secret structure, and you have a small group of people trying to do everything.
Right.
Right? And within the central committee now, and as a secret sitting within the central committee, Morris was blamed for all of everything. So I think that is where, but this is why I pause before answering it too, is because I'm thinking we didn't know all of that then. So this is, analyzing it after the fact and coming to realize, yeah, this is what happened. For example, with that book, another comments from people, you realize that yes, Maurice was blamed for everything. And those of us who were not within that party structure, but close to the party, knew that there were all of these critiques going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And bit by bit, I came to know that Maurice was being blamed. And I'm not sure exactly when. I'm remembering one incident on the way to um, BBC or somewhere, going out to fetch one night, hearing some announcement on the radio. And, just being started by this announcement that about a rumor. I think that's when I really, yes, because we were hearing that, there was
Rumors
unease.
of war.
Right. So that's when it's really, so it came to us also in that kind of piecemeal fashion. You didn't really know what was going on. You started to hear arguments within the office. Not so much arguments as quiet whispers, within the office structure. But I'm trying to think when was the first time I actually knew that there was.
Yeah, but there are two things. I remember that we went to a big meeting at the door.
Right.
At the door, and yes, but it wasn't a council meeting. It was, supposed some supporters, party members, candidate, and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And
But this, Yeah. Was it at the Dome House, this meeting that you and I were both at
Yeah,
this meeting up the hill? It was at Butler House.
Oh, but it's Butler. What is Butler House again? I thought
Butler House
the
was
dome is
the
Butler
prime,
House.
no, the Butler House was the Prime Minister's residence, was the Prime Minister's office up the hill. So there was a meeting that we were both at, and I think that's when it
But it's a
became
big
very
meeting
clear.
up there. I'm not big so that.
Yes, they had a room that you could have these meetings. And that's where they had the meeting of applicants and all members in the party structure. So it wasn't only people who were within the party, but people like us who were close.
Right. Well, you know what? It was on a campaign, that presidential thing that they went to. And they committed. But also it's something really started me, and I forget about it at right now. A certain young member of the
Central
Central
Committee.
yes, and I will recall it. I was listening to the radio all the time, and people were go on the radio and members of government and all kinds of things and giving speeches. And this one of them came on, and it happened like twice. I get a kind of shiver. He was speaking exactly like God. He took on his persona, right? And I said, Lord, when something happened there. Something happened there, like get turned on was. I realized then that now the thing with that I forget to say just now is that he, Morris was executed for not being sufficiently Marxist. The beauty of Morris was that he was willing to develop in whatever direction the people as a whole were ready to do, or at a pace. He didn't go out in front of them. He was with them, right? But these people now, or
Faction.
that faction, and with its quote unquote would be joint leader, was impatient, and so everything. Yeah, the people, you see, the word Marxist Leninist was not a household word, and
Well, I
people
mean,
did
it would
not
have meant nothing to
meant
them.
nothing, but
Yeah.
also they did not. I mean, I suppose they would hear it, or read in papers and things or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the people, when they joined the revolution and supported it with all they had not signed on for something called Marxist Leninism. Oh no! I break off part of the story just now. The story was telling about when they sitting in a group of women, right? So I'm saying that they had no do with socialism, And then another story is that there was a group of kind of, well, they looked elderly to me at the time. They must see was and they had formed a committee to help. Well, not they didn't. It wasn't the time this particular thing happened. They hadn't started that yet. They were just a group of women who were doing good work, and so early in the thing, Jackie and I would. Jackie was carrying with someone. Jackie used to be on the road all the time, and we spotted this lady ahead, so we slowed down, and the lady put her head in the car window and said very excitedly how nice things going and it's lovely and so on. So, and then she said, it have people saying that is socialism, that it's socialism they're putting us in. And the lady said, if this is socialism, give me more. Because whatever she was involved in, whatever area was a joy to her, the things that were happening there,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, the question as to when things started to show, I suppose once I should get that anymore. It was different things.
I mean, so what?
To me, it was 83. Yeah. To me, it was in 83.
Yeah.
Exactly what point? Probably September 83.
Yes, and the carnival that year, there were higher party, young people walking in the crowd as if they expected something to happen. That carnival is in August, I think.
Yes.
And at that time, but I think it's because I had already got some hint. They had them deployed. And I suppose that only occurred to me afterwards. They had I mean, because the CC was no people neither. It was all them young boys.
I mean, Maurice was 45, 44, 45 when he was.
we were the same age as me because we born in the same year.
Yeah.
And my birthday is January, this is May. And in fact, Jackie brought him and my birthday in January, we sit down, we all talk, and we sit down and stuff and then he's good. So whatever age was noise.
Well, a few months older than
Yes, you see, so
Right.
again, yeah, you know, but no,
See, that's 39.
so 39, I wasn't 40 when I came home and celebrated the 40th.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But what you're talking about here is essentially a difference of personality, and like one of the things that my dad, who was there, and he's talking about people in the market saying watch Bernard because because he was gonna make thing for the power, and he was very power hungry.
All right, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't call it power hungry. Just fanatic of whatever thing they over toward like that, but something else.
But I mean, to me, right, it seems like almost insane that a small island that is mostly agrarian and most, like just 5 years independent, just about 100 and something years out of emancipation. Not a lot of industry in that sense. Would would aim for a Marxist-Leninist revolution.
Yeah, well, it was
But that's what I'm saying. Like even from a sense point of view, it doesn't make sense.
It
doesn't make sense that was.
It meant. They didn't know
Yeah.
anything about that.
No, but I mean, from a leadership point of view, to
Well,
think
exactly.
that a small agrarian island
could be transformed
Could be
into a highly
transformed.
industrialized.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, let me tell you, there was somebody who was saying that it just come back to that's what people were saying about Phyllis. That undercurrent was there in the whole of the revolution from day one.
Mhm.
That people were suspicious of Bernard and Phyllis, I'm afraid, right?
Right.
Every time I traveled out of Grenada, there were people in the islands, the groups, and they would wanted, they would ask for somebody to come and talk about it. So I was one of the people who would go. And in each of those things, people were saying to me, they were referring to that about how what really is going on with the Hodge. They saw them as willing to undermine the whole Oh, and then when people there in a couple of instances, people gave me letters to give months. So the people would say to me, when you go back 12 months, look over it, look behind it, and Paul going to do your hand. That was all over the Caribbean, right?
Wow.
This saw.
And when was that from? That was from 82, 83? That was from early 83, or was it?
No, but what I'm saying is that undercurrent was
always there.
Yes,
always there.
And I suppose at this point it started with that.
Momentum.
You started out saying that with personality.
Mhm.
You use the word personality. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that the like the personality from what I get from what I've read, what I've heard from stories, etc. I hear of one person who is like a real swordfish, right? Somebody who is, with the people, a limer, very much, down for listening as well as talking. Like all the pictures that you see, there's some very iconic images of Maurice where, like a little old lady is holding his face.
Yes.
Or like he was so beloved. I mean, like even when I travel to different places and people talk about Maurice Bishop, they talk about this person who was very loved. And then on the other hand, you have Hodge, who is not remembered for his personality
Right.
as such. He is remembered for being very much by the book. and a person of order, rigidity, structure.
Yes.
And to me, when you see those two personalities, you know, obviously there would be some. I mean, you know, if I think about it in nowadays terms, you know, you have one person who's popular and well loved, and you have one person who's a little bit awkward and
Right.
unpopular and, you know, not so well liked because, you know, he doesn't groove with the people as much. So you have this sort of, and then you have this proposal of joint leadership, which um, the people do not go for.
Right.
But
You
was it
know?
out in the open? It never came out of the
The
open.
joint leadership, the
No.
joint leadership, I think it was being talked
Out in the
about.
public?
Yeah, it was being talked about generally, how much of it was the people.
I mean, like coming down to the last few
in
days.
September, it was
Yes, on the 21st of September, I think there was a meeting and there was an announcement and, you know.
Yeah, but I suppose
Yeah.
you're thinking of how much people knew about
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Was it in the
But,
QS Indian, for example? On the radio and stuff? I doubt it, you know. It was all happening behind.
It was
It
all
was not
behind
really
the
being
scenes.
discussed in the community.
You understand?
You know. But you know, for me, one of the more I think about it, and I'm still trying to
Process.
work it, you know, to
Yeah.
process it after all of these years. But the more I think about it, the more I feel that what is really frightening is that the core faction, those we can call the core faction now, they didn't come up saying that it's not as I think, as I see, bad mind and power hungry. We go do this, we go mash it up. But they really felt that they are right. That look, the only thing yeah. So that the only thing in this situation where everybody, and the interesting to me is that in that meeting that Godfrey they talk about Uni, um, George, well, all those who are ostensibly on Morris' side as well. Everybody saying
Not
yes,
ostensibly, they were
but we're
on
not
our side.
ostensibly. They're definitely on Morris' side. Yes,
They kill all of them.
they are saying yes, something is wrong. There is a weakness. They're critiquing Morris as well in the beginning there, which started, you know, so that everybody's saying yes, something is going on here. But then the others, the party, yeah, because the party fell down on Bernard's side, so we had to put Bernard on the party, um, took that further. So that whereas Uni and so were saying, yes, there are weaknesses, they're not going to do this thing to Morris. But Bernard now and then came down on the idea of principle is principle. Remember that those words, those famous words, principle is principle, and this is about Marxism, Leninism, and all of that. And they are sure they are right.
Inside
And the other
their
right
head.
inside of their head, yeah.
Not
And the other side is wrong. It's not the population. So that is where they're wrong when you come down to it. So that even if you think that and you think you're supposed to build a Marxist Leninist state or whatever that means. Even if you think that, and people you keep saying, right, are the most important to this revolution, the people say, no, we're not going that way. Whatever way Maurice going, right, you might still think, no, that's not what we, but you had to follow. So to me, that is where the mistake is. I mean, the terrible mistake is that they decide, no, what they're going to do is shoot.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
You mean to specifically public? They shoot and sell the public?
No, I mean, they decide that that is what they're going to do.
I
But
mean,
I'm
you know,
saying
like my question is, what was the end game? Like, what did they think was going to
Marxism,
happen?
Leninism,
Did
right?
they
No,
think
no,
that
but immediately
in you know, in doing what they did
Mhm.
at, um,
On four.
on the fort,
Mhm.
did they think that that would accelerate the movement towards a
Yes.
Marxist-Leninist?
But also, also Tiller, they immediately, and what they say in the book there, what's his name? Godfrey, right?
Yeah.
They in the book it says that they sent out calls for help to countries all over the place. I find that was
ridiculous.
yes, that was the height of that is
It was the height of
you
stupidity.
see how B had a B there's he looked like an owl that night there sitting on the chair so as if he nothing to see. Short sighted where's the word again? Tone deafness. If you
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
and Cuba I think the sun
That I
to
agree
Cuba
with. Yeah.
nobody took them on and why would they think that countries would come to their assistance
Yeah.
after that horrible thing that they did. But it's
Absolutely.
not.
But even by that point, that was the frightening thing. Even by that point, they are not thinking it's a horrible thing. Because they are, afterwards, there were emulation. You ever heard this thing? That there were people who were um, given, who were told, that they had done something good.
Where did it come from? See, we see the joint leader.
I don't know,
But I
but
think
the party had a post.
postmortem or the whole thing.
No, a post shooting meeting. There was a meeting that happened afterwards in which people were emulated.
You know, a really callous thing that is in the book here,
And it's probably in that book as well. I must look
it probably is, but one thing that is said there is that the people are coming from Guyana and so people who have an interest in the health and they were all there and they were all up in one of the two houses, either Marshall or in the court's house. And somebody and there's one of them again. I know probably name. He had been part. He was part of the shootings. I mean, I don't know if he actually shot, but I mean he was there. He saw it. So he went up the hill to where these people were, and the fella from Guyana, I can't remember his name, from their party, right in Guyana, asked him, how is Morris? How is Morris? You know what that boy say? And he was really kind of callous like boy. That boy say, how is Morris? I mean, how was Morris? He was able to do that at that point there. The man is freshly killed and he was able to go and make a joke about that. He said, tell him,
So those are the frightening things
yeah,
that
departure from
to
your
me,
humanity.
right, to me the critique of Morris himself, those kind of things, those are not the frightening things. But it's what happened subsequent that they could, that one part of the party could still think it is possible to do these things and do it.
Yes, and you know one other thing that I happened, of course I didn't know, but I didn't leave immediately, but I went to the 14th anniversary of October 1930. And there were a number of people I met who told me that they went around scraping up people from out of the house who had to hide in the toilet, who had to go by the neighbor and all that. They went and picked up people, scraped them up, carried them into jail amazing, just plain amazing.
But you all were at the fort.
I was.
You were there.
Yes, I was. Now that is a story that could take a whole interview. But the broad lines of it are that I had brought now I had well, I won't say I set up, but I had some relationship with them. I used to do that. In many such thing now. But so they were in my house and we came down to the first that morning. And I think there were demonstrations, there were demonstrations, and I had come down to take Mr. Kirk to the hospital for some kind of thing. And I was parking from the house, these schools were there and there, like their road crossing, and these children, little children, all ages, I was like, some women came at me the night before, in the house, and I was so frightened. But by then we realized something.
Something is going on.
Yeah, and a set of them came. They came to me like a poster and thing, and they said that in NGM days they used to tell us when you do demonstrations for the children and let me see, right? So that is what they do. They organize. Kind of mind. The organizing skills of those people I still admire today. So the next morning, so we go driving the man out, and he's at the children come with the little placard and thing, and they say, no, no Jackie, no school. That was the Minister of Education. And then some were saying, no Morris, something like that. Anyway, so the place was in excitement. The crowd went. We heard all of that from where we were, where we press. And you're hearing thing going on, you're hearing crashing and thing. A whole crowd had gone up there, and more crowd was coming because where we were living, you could see the anything where that part of the Carolina. You could see people arriving from the whole of the river, and you could car, bicycle, van, bus, whatever they could find, just streaming in. And they went up to where they had noise. Well, it's in his own house, and they pushed on the gate and they took him out. And they bring him down. Same street as well. And they're coming down, and Auntie Pan decided to do this Jackie, and Auntie Pan had never gone to anything. In fact, what they did was to bring the boy down and stick his hand in the can, see boys, you know. Auntie Pan came, all of that had me shift again, you know, in shivers. Also, a girl who ate lunch there. He never was in anything, a nice, quiet girl. And we decided to come. Well, what happened up there is another set of thing. But there's a businessman who owned a hotel on the way. He said, go in there to tell them to give you some food from us. And we did that. And at some point, the man said, we leave all them children home, let's go home now. And for some reason, just around then, the shooting started. They were shooting from outside. It did happen. And they actually hit a girl who I learned afterwards had done a major part of the what was speaking about the child who got his head. He was right next to me. And this is when this man who now disowns this information, so I won't call his name. Up here, man, he called me, he said, Miss Sister, I'm sit down here. And he asked if I trust everybody there and look at the faces. I said, but we didn't have time to try that and put it because he came into the room and hit a lot of people right from outside. And this child next to me. But it went on for a while, shooting, and people inside getting killed. In fact, the person who called him and to tell him lie down on the ground and he said, go take him to the die because I can't tell us one. Pick up the utensils in the sacrifice and she was walking all the way to 7 minutes. We only found out days later that she was in. What if you know who made it? That one, I think so, yes. And shoot, and when we didn't know, Jackie told us, Morris saying, or maybe he said it in your room, I can't remember, that when you go outside, they stay around and you come down again, here, everyone, so if they're guns again. And if I had a set of fellas outside and they go, shoot. They're just shooting at the building and this one. And that kind of thing is a lot more, but I mean, that is it in a nutshell, you know, and the things that Auntie Pan had never gone to anything, and that lady either had never gone to a single rally, nothing had. I wouldn't say I had no interest in the revolution, but wasn't people up and about, you know. So that is it in a nutshell. All kinds of Italian places in that.
And so, how did you get out of Grenada afterwards?
Yes. Well, Regina Dimas was there with her children, and she phoned me and said that the Americans are taking foreigners out, people who don't exist, and then you could get in a helicopter, and then the airport was being built. In fact, I think that's the first time the airport get used. Yes, you know. So, well, I say I was going to carry my book. So me and I took back now. So we went to she has 2 children. We went to the airport with them. We got on this helicopter. In fact, my mother sent me something. She was in the States, and I hope I can still put my hand on that. She found a picture inside the helicopter. That the helicopter had no seats, so we was sitting down on all kind of thing. And she recognized me and Andy with this thing on the air that I suppose they need because they're getting all these noises, you know. It was in the newspaper, you know. But so we went there, and Meanwhile, so we were taken to Trinidad in what boy? Another plane, American, we were, well, the helicopter, the helicopter didn't know what he was doing there. And we learned that somebody said that the Trinidad government was making a BWI plane coming home just from an ordinary trip. They made them stay in the airport until we got there. Right? So but wait, at that point, I'm home already. Perhaps I tried to use the airport, perhaps this plane was in the airport, and all of that is fuzzy in the head. Because by the time we reach that, you're in the plane. So I think that was it. The airport was in use.
So we have 8 minutes, 7 minutes. I wanted to find out what happened in those 5 years to impact on not just the tragedy, but also the good stuff.
Yes, yes, it's that whole business of getting, because I can't see that happening here, because we're so divided on the racing and all of that. They're seeing people really get together to take the right? And the kind of community spirit that was strengthened, because I suppose they have more community spirit than us anyway, but that was strengthened. People were just really pulling together. And that is the inspiration of one Morris Bishop. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's the same, to some extent, it's the same, and it makes me think of kind of cause and effect. And it makes me think of the fact that it still affects me because that's very fun. During that period of the revolution, the time I found my literary voice. So that when people say that as a writer, I'm a product of the revolution, I say, yeah, it came out of that. It came out, definitely came out of that period. And I had those interests. Certainly, I had it then, I still have, I guess, that kind of search for things. So that, for example, when you are talking about wanting to know something about the revolution over that period and how we feel. And my first thing is, I'm not even so sure I want to talk about it. And then asking you, I really want to know, okay, this is another generation wanting to engage, wanting to talk about it. So how important it is, how interesting it is that you are, in a sense, kind of making me go to spaces in my head I'm not even sure I want to go to. Because, and that means that the revolution in itself and that whole period um, did make a difference and had an impact. So, in a sense, what's happening here is that you are insisting let's not put it that yes, go there because I want to know what you felt and I want to know how. And that's it.
Um, I just feel that looking around in the region now, there's so many things that challenge us. Whether it's climate change or crime or you know just a sort of you know political uh, yeah apathy. There's I have to say that you know there is one part of my brain that wants to you know, look back at the revolution and say things were possible at that time. Um, but even within that possibility, things could go so horribly wrong. So if we were to look to that example, we see a reason why people have really pulled back from political engagement in a real sense. We see why certain types of regional integration conversation that was happening at that time, I would say from the 70s into the mid 80s, has kind of gone the way of not really, you know. Um, and I don't think it's a question of bringing it back, but it's a question of tapping into that energy, tapping into that possibility to see how we can build things in small ways. So, like for example, this space luckily is about trying to create possibility for collaboration amongst different types of people. So, you have people who are doing cultural work, or you have people who are doing community work, or you have people who are doing social justice work. How do all of us find a way to each other? Um, and also to keep ourselves accountable
Right.
because especially now we have movements that are riven apart by very by similar challenges, by similar ideological challenges, right? And I'm just wondering how we move forward while learning from what happened in the past, so that mistakes that were made before aren't made again. So, like things being broken apart because you are Marxist Leninist and I am a this, or you want to work with non-binary people and I don't think that those people are people, and it is such a challenge for movement, but we still have those challenges in our movements, and so I guess I'm asking you for answers so that those same mistakes aren't
Right.
continuously made every single generation where we're confronting again and again this personality difference, this difference of ideology, this difference of approach, and yeah, I mean that's why I keep asking the questions and I keep going to find people who I hope will have a little piece of the answer, because obviously nobody has the full answer. So yeah, I mean, I guess thank you so much
Thanks for explaining.
for answering and for yeah, I mean, I've tried on numerous occasions to ask my parents who were more peripherally involved, but also, very emotionally involved in the movement. Um, and neither of them can give clear answers. There's still so much anger and so much grief surrounding what happened. Um, and there seems to be no resolution for it. You know, how does resolution come, and where is the sense of justice at the end of the day?
Of course, it's a different scene entirely. The invasion of America into your drawing room. When we were children and we read books, the books were British and American books. But when you throw the book, I got now American in front of me, trying to kill it and doing so all day long. And that kind of because I myself am, not very optimistic about starting up. But I suppose you start small. That's one of the things I think the MJM was saw. And
And the answer that you give means that that kind of switching goes on, and that in itself is positive. Because you could have just said, okay, if you don't want to do this, you know, but you kind of persisted and a discussion. I mean, some things might seem a little bit fuzzy. Um, you made me think about something more as well, and as a result of this exchange, I think it's important.
Thank you so much. Auntie Moons. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the time and the energy and the efforts. And I warned my cameraman that I might cry, but I didn't cry. Yay me. So yeah, we wanted to have a teaching because it's the 45th anniversary, and I think you know
What is
this
a teaching?
a teaching is like
What
when you have an issue or an idea that you want to bring people together to talk about, and certain people have information and you want to share information, and so I I also thought that this would be online because yes, we could have asked people to come here and ting and things, but I also wanted to have like a permanent record of it so that people can go back and refer and you know listen to the conversation at their leisure. Use it as a reference
Yes, yes.
because for a lot of people they just don't know what happened. They just don't know what happened. I mean, I have a little bit more information because I have like a direct connection, but a lot of people just don't know what
But
happened.
you know, it's the sad thing when I went over there. Well, of course, I'm not really people there, but the young people don't know it.
Mm,
Yeah, you know, so they're managing for it. Well, I hope not entirely, but it is.
I remember going to a fete in Grenada. I want to say like I was 2018 or so, and recently, I remember one of the performers coming up and saying, starting to sing that song by Dennis Brown. Do you know what it means to have a revolution? And the crowd went up, and he said Maurice Bishop's name, but I didn't get the sense that they actually knew
What they were talking about.
who or what they were talking about and what were the implications of what happened. And so yeah, so it's interesting how something that happened 45 years ago, but I mean, has just completely disappeared from our
Right.
consciousness.
And that's the result of the trauma.
Yeah.
So you see kind of my reaction of, I really want to talk about this. That is the general reaction of the population in Grenada.
Yeah.
And it is amazing that 45 years later, that is there. So it's kind of trauma transferred from one generation to another.
This is it.
And people just think, me talking about that.
Yeah.
So as a result, it's just
Yeah.
buried.
Yeah.
And people who were involved in the revolution either don't belong
Yeah.
there and don't want their children and grandchildren on the streets
Right.
because they are also remembering that kind of trauma. And besides that, the population still remains divided along the lines of, who support what, who support what. Now I think it's changing.
Mm.
Now with these young leaders, group of people who come out and who are talking and who are encouraging discussion. Um, so I think so hopefully it's gradually.
Okay. All right. We have our time.
Uh,
I know. Thank you.